Now, I've got one more question for you, and it might be a little tricky one because we have a very sensitive audience, and I'm somebody who was very passionate about this individual I mentioned, but lately I've been a little disappointed by some of his actions. But President Trump really swore to fight the deep state and to win and to lock them up and to, end the Fed and bring in much more prosperity to our country, which he did a lot of those things. But he's obviously running for president again. And some people think at this point that he could be a Trojan horse, that he could be a deep state plant because he's saying a lot of things, but his actions sometimes speak otherwise and are confusing. And he hasn't really vehemently come out against the vaccine. He still calls it the greatest achievement of mankind. And so a lot of the things he says and does lately have given people some pause. So do you have any thoughts on that one way or the other? Any honest thoughts?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And I'll try and be as honest and objective as possible. The question is, do I think that he could be some kind of Trojan horse or controlled opposition?
Yes, controlled opposition.
Yeah. The answer is yes. I think he could be. Does that mean that I think he is? I don't really know, but he could be because his pattern is an exact performance of what those people do. If you're going to be a false leader, you have to do some things that make people feel that you are worthy of their trust.
You have to gain a lot of trust,
They have to do good things.
Yes.
And another thing that helps if you're on the other side, I spend a lot of my time thinking, what would I do if I were sitting on the other side on that table and doing strategy? And it's pretty easy to do if you just say, what would I do?
Right.
And so not only would I make sure that my controlled op leader is really working for me, but I don't want anybody to know that. I want to make him look like he's working against me.
Yes, yes.
And in order to do that, I have to encourage him. In fact, I have to instruct him to do some things that are really against me. They will be well-chosen things that could be reversed later, not permanent things, but little things, that, especially if people are concerned about them, and you can make a big, publicity thing out of it. Like, arrest Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
Yay! If you vote for me, I guarantee you Hillary's going into prison. I think most people bought into that. Well, whatever happened to Hillary? What? Those things don't need to be, campaign promises don't need to be delivered, or if they are, they can be easily reversed later on. So I look at things like that.
Yeah.
And I remember, so the answer is yes, it could be.
Yeah.
So you look around for evidence of it. I remember when Mr. Trump was running for office in the very beginning, when nobody thought he was a serious candidate, I saw in the newspaper on the back page, he spent the day with Henry Kissinger. What? And why would somebody who's against the deep state, say he was, spend a day with Mr. Deep State?
Yeah.
And there was no evidence in the newspaper article of what they talked about, but he came out of it, and it was a very good talk, I think, or something like that, a good conversation. And why would that be? And I thought, well, I get it. Because at that time, Mr. Trump was saying, you should vote for me because I'm a deal maker. Remember that? I make deals. I can work with anybody. And people thought, he can strike a good deal for our side, right?
Yeah.
But they didn't realize that if you can work with anybody, you have no principles.
Right. True.
You can't work with the devil.
Yeah.
You can't work with the enemy.
You can't make a deal with the devil, literally.
No. No, you can't. You lose anyway if you try.
Yeah.
But so I thought, okay, so you made a deal with Kissinger. Kissinger, of course, I hope your viewers know that, he is considered to be the bagman for the Rockefellers.
Yeah.
He was the head of the Council on Foreign Relations for quite a while. He's been Secretary of State under Republicans and Democrats. He's Mr. Deep State. He is one of the most powerful in the world. And so when you go to talk to Mr. Kissinger, you're talking to the Rockefellers. He's their intermediary. So he made a deal, maybe. And with the deal, what would the deal be? Well, to get everybody to like you who we want to betray. So how would you do that? Well, you got to say the right thing. We find out that the whole pattern, the slogans and everything of his campaign were done by an advertising firm. They weren't his, of course. It was paid for by money. And I think, I'd have to check on this, but I think it was a firm located in the UK.
Interesting.
Make America Great Again came out of a public relations firm. Had nothing to do with Mr. Trump. They were saying, what do the American people want to hear?
Yeah.
They conduct polls. They spend a lot of money finding out what we want to hear our candidates say. So then they hire people, script writers. They write the scripts, and the candidates say what we want to hear. Yay! Well, put Hillary Clinton in prison. Hooray! And we elect the guy. Okay, I'm looking at that too. Something is that what's going on here? I wonder. And then I look at Mr. Trump's background. He doesn't really have a very good record of having high levels of ethics, Some of it's always coming out. These ladies are always accusing him of these porn stars and so forth. How did he get involved with them in the first place? Even if their stories are false, they hung out together, and we know that. What's that all about? So you put it all together, and I see the possibility. You ask me, is it possible that he is a kid? I think it's possible. You realize that here's a man that probably could easily be blackmailed. They probably have a lot of photographs of this guy that would destroy his political and probably his personal image forevermore. The guy always wanted to be president. He said so as a young person. He wanted to be president of the United States. And so if you make a deal with Rockefeller, he said, well, we'll make you president. All you have to do is just what we tell you to do and say the things we want you to do and so forth. And support the really big things. Don't ever move against the Federal Reserve. Don't touch that.
Yeah.
Don't ever say anything against internationalism and the UN and the loss of American sovereignty. Don't touch that.
Yeah.
And don't do certain things, the really big things. But you can do little things. And don't touch the pharmaceutical industry. Let them continue to have a free ride and laws that give them immunity against all the deaths that are being caused. Don't touch that. And he hasn't touched any of those. So he's playing the game with little chessmen, pawns, not queens and the knights and so forth. So that's my answer to you. But it's possible. I hope it's not true.
Me neither.
But if I were on the other side, I would look for somebody just like that.
Somebody who's very charismatic, and people always get mad at me when I bring up this possibility, and they say you're
mad.
Yeah, I'm a deep stater.
Conspiracy theorist.
Right.
Yeah, you're a conspiracy theorist.
Is this what we're experiencing right now? Well, what do you think? JT here, Serenity Farms Prepping. So, for the last year or so, I've gone on a couple of the very popular channels on Rumble that are set in their ways. There's one plan, and that's all there is. And they won't tolerate hearing anything from anyone about Trump or the plan. So I've mentioned almost exactly what you saw in the first 8 minutes of the video. And I go back a little further that there was a memo in 2015-ish put out by John Red Shoes Podesta and Hillary, in which they stated, we need someone, a puppet on the Republican side who is controllable. Which leads one to believe that the 2016 election was also fixed. So think about this for a minute. We had terrible presidents, Bush, traitor, Clinton, even worse, Bush Jr., traitor, Obama for 8 years. We know how bad that was. So what if the plan was during the Obama Hussein Kenyan regime to create a racist, un-American, piss-poor economy, bank bailout situation to make the Democrat wing of the Uniparty look really, really bad, so that virtually anyone who was going to step in on the Republican side in 2016 would look like a savior, as they like to call him in the 17th letter thing. So, in comes Trump, says a lot of the right things, most of which never happened, has 4 years, is doing some good things that gets everybody excited that maybe the country's being saved and headed in the right direction. So we overlook the things that he promised that never actually happened. Like draining the swamp, Hillary in jail, getting the wall completely done. Lots of stuff. So in comes the great pandemic and bringing in the pedophile regime and immediately tearing down the country even worse than it was before Trump got in. So these 4 years of literally every single thing the Democrat wing of the Uniparty is doing is collapsing America. Meanwhile, it allows Trump and the Trumpettes to go on a pity party. The election was rigged. The justice system is two-tier, blah, blah. Everything you're hearing. Truth Social was started, which is nothing but a egomaniacal, narcissistic platform. All the Trumpsters are out there with their channels and their Substacks and parroting the same thing. There's almost religious revivals going on. Trump is always mentioned with a biblical quote of some kind. It's rather frightening. And all the while, all of those folks will not tolerate any questioning of their savior or the plan. And they're very vile and vulgar and threatening even to anyone who does. But what if that's all been a PSYOP to bring the savior back to finish us all off? It would truly be the greatest or worst PSYOP that's ever been perpetrated on the American people. Actually, it would be a long-running one for 12, 16, 20 years. It might not have been the plan all along, but it certainly was for the last 6 or 8, if you believe. I've seen the copy of the email from Podesta and Hillary. So, what if that's all I can say is what if. I'm just throwing it out there. It's crossed my mind more than once. I voted for Trump twice. I was a staunch defender of him from 2016 up until about mid-2020, when his refusal and continued support in 5G, which is critical too, are unwavering, and he's doubled and tripled down on it. And I have to admit, his constant pity me, egomaniacal ranting gets very old. I want to believe the man is who he says he is, but I'm struggling. And I want to know who else is. Obviously, you saw that interview that was on Rumble. And that's not the only two people besides me that I have heard mention this. I want to know what you all think of this. Like I said, I am not 100% sure either way right now, because over the course of the last 6, 8, 12 years, I have learned not to trust anyone. And I don't know that I can get that back. I think that my ability or desire to put my faith and trust in anyone to do the right thing is gone. I really believe the uniparty exists. I do also believe that there are a handful of true conservatives trying to fight, but some of them also seem to be totally dedicated only to Trump. So does that mean they've all been fooled, with the word fool in parentheses, or are they all in on it? It seems like it's just too big, too enormous, too gigantic a PSYOP for it actually to be pulled off. But if you think about how they've done it, if they did it, in incremental steps over the years, then for the last 3+ years, they've only got to do the last part. All the rest of the stepping stones were already in place. Most of us had already made up our minds on every other part of the PSYOP based on which way we leaned. So it don't really have to factor those in. Just what's happened the last 3.5 years. You get where I'm going with this? I hope so. I'm just trying to put it out there. I don't want it to be right. I've never wanted to be more wrong. But something's just tugging at me, you know what I mean? And I don't like it. And then I hear other people thinking the same way I am, and they're not verifying the way I think. They're thinking the way I am, and because none of it's been verified. Unfortunately, the way it all gets verified means very, very bad things. But, I had mentioned when Trump came out with his 10 new cities. Well, the New World Order talks about 10 cities run by FEMA and the UN. And Trump's talking about a new digital system, even based on a digital currency, but theirs would be the quantum financial system, not the central bank digital. Well, it doesn't matter. Digital's digital. Still track, control, and control. And then he has Agenda 47. That seems like a terrible choice of words when we know there's been Agenda 21 and then Agenda 30, and then Trump comes out with Agenda 47. It's cutesy that he would be the 47th president, but the word agenda has completely negative connotations for me. So those things, his support and doubling down, that's scary. Very scary. There's just a lot of things that, when you think about it from the angle I'm discussing right now, they make too much sense that I don't want to make sense of. I could go on, but I want you to think about this. Like, share, and comment on this. Let me know if you think I'm way off base or if I'm onto something. Like I said, I'm not convinced either way yet. And I hope and pray that I'm wrong. Because if I'm not... But, yeah, let me know what you think. But for now, JT, signing off.